A new year, a new season, but will there be new players to mix things up? The Spec Racer Ford is a simple machine, but sometimes the cars that are easiest to drive are the hardest to master. And as we've seen in this series, the fastest drivers are not only hard to beat, but hard to simply catch in the first place. Will it be more runaway domination by the regular faces? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round one of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. Nick, we kicked things off on a track that doesn't usually see the spec racers on it in real life, but I think Silverstone fits this car pretty nicely.
I would definitely agree with you with that there, Joe. The history here at Silverstone, it really beams off of the asphalt while the drivers race over it every single lap. This venue opened in 1943, but not as a racetrack, as a Royal Air Force bomber station. Like many World War II Air Force bases, it used a 3-runway design that is still evident in the Grand Prix layout being used today. In 1948, the Royal Automobile Club took out a lease on the venue for a couple of exhibition races, and, well, the rest was history. There's not much elevation change, but the combination of high speeds and tricky technical portions of the track are sure to provide quite the challenge for the Spec Racer Fords today. 17 turns spanning over 3 miles or about 5 kilometers is what makes up this legendary circuit. To get a better idea of what these drivers are up against today, let's send you down to the track for the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Stefan Schlacker in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Silverstone. Coming down to Copse, drivers might get a chance to make an overtake, but it'll be harder than you'd expect. This is a pretty swift first corner, so you won't likely be able to outbrake someone. If anything, you're probably better off setting yourself up for a better run off the corner. Just be careful about how wide you go, because a bad bounce over the little strip of grass can cause a loss of control. From there, you'll drift back across to set up for the Maggots-Beckett sequence. These S's tighten as they go, so each subsequent corner you'll be slowing more and more. This car isn't so great braking and turning, so that and the lift throttle oversteer catches a lot of people out in this section. Make sure to get the power down early off this last right-hander so that you can carry your speed through Chapel and onto the hangar straight. The draft in the Spec Racer gives a huge toe, so this stretch will probably see the most passes of any part of the track. At the end of it is Stowe, which got redone in the early 90s to include this little crest. It makes it not only blind, but really prone to causing understeer. This means drivers taking a bad line can wind up being a bit slow, and anyone who just got past can make a counterattack down into Vale. But while Vale is a pretty heavy braking zone, it's a slow and tight chicane. It's one of the more common places for drivers to clatter into each other. It also bleeds directly into Club, where once again, getting a run off the corner is just as important as your entry. You've now got a bit of a straight that isn't as long as Hangar, but long enough that you've got a chance to make a pass down into the Abbey chicane. This is a quicker left-right than Vale, especially with how the second apex opens up significantly. This launches you towards Bridge, which offers a variety of lines for drivers to take on their way into Priory. That can sometimes cause miscommunication if anyone's trying a surprise attack into this left-hander. This now starts the slowest part of the track with a series of tight technical turns. Brooklands also has these little sausage curves to the inside that you don't want to hit because they're way too tall for the Spec Racer to handle. Now the track immediately switches back into the long hairpin of Luffield. Again, a few lines can be taken, but I find a double apex tends to serve you best. That lets you square off the exit really well and mash the power down that little bit sooner. That'll be important since it's a flat-out run through Woodcote. But now that we're back to the pit straight, we've now finished a lap around Silverstone. There you see a lap around Silverstone as the drivers get their qualifying laps in. And, well, as I mentioned, the real world does see this car race quite a bit, but usually over here in the States. And, well, one of the places here in the United States that you can race these cars is at Southeast Spec Racer. They are a full-service Spec Racer Ford prep shop located in Daytona Beach, Florida, offering a fleet of race-ready SRFs and the driver coaching to go with it. SSR is your one-stop shop for all things spec. They also offer transportation and storage, parts, and advice. You can find them at southeastspecracer.com. Big thank you to them for sponsoring this season, and really hopeful that we'll see a few drivers check them out because they've actually apparently used iRacing a bit to help prep people in some of the real-life races that they run in. Now, let's take a look at how last season wound up, since we don't have any points on the board yet for this one. Of course, Ironam wound up with the championship because, unfortunately, the Greek driver Dimitri Houdaloutis had to step away for real-life obligations. John Madden winds up in the third spot, jumping up just two of them at the very end of it, and then that demotes Halliburton and Stefanini down one each to fourth and fifth. We also have a Spec 2 championship here. Nick, what did those wind up like?
Yeah, as we take a look here at last year's Spec 2, the final driver standings, Jens Nordstrom with the Swede taking home the crown there with a big lead, 38 points over Bob Kern, who moved up late in the season to surpass Todd Hansen, 7 points further back than him. We also have Adam Bradshaw finishing fourth and C. Love, both the British drivers finishing fourth and fifth.
Now, if you've never watched the Weekend Warriors with the Spec Racer, why don't we familiarize you with exactly what we've got today. Now, it is a short season. They took a little bit of a break over the holidays, which is understandable. Let drivers have a little bit of time off. So it's only 9 rounds this time around. They're still giving 3 drop weeks with that. The setups are open in this car in this series. There's not a lot you can do with it. You're not going to find a whole lot of speed through the setup itself. But the big thing to know is that they've limited the fuel cells compared to what they have in real life. So unlike real life, you will have a scheduled pit stop in this car for fuel, even though it is only 40 minutes long for this race. The points are actually rationed there. Now, they do keep the points even for first, second, and third. So it does say rationed from 100 to 25, but it is from fourth to last place that they effectively ration them. The incident points do have an effect. Every 10 of them that you get a 2-point penalty, so you got to keep it clean. And they do have a spare car in hand in case they run into any issues out on track and get too much damage to continue. Jason Perry, you can see, has returned for this season. He's currently sitting on the front row behind our pole sitter, David Gaspers. One name that's familiar, though, to the Spec Racer drivers in that community who we didn't see last season, Daniel Manenkov has shown back up. He's currently sitting in third, so he has not lost his speed at all since we last saw him here in the Weekend Warriors. And actually, I'm trying to think if we have seen him in the Weekend Warriors. It might have only been the Week 13 big grid races. So, Nick, I'm looking forward to this. We're at least seeing a few faces show up that weren't here participating last season, so maybe we'll get a little bit of a mix-up this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of newcomers to this series, which is always good to see in any iRacing series. It looks like we have about 32 drivers right now that have shown up to Silverstone today, so good-sized field for a track. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. Like you said, these cars don't race here in the real world at all, but I personally think, like you said, it's a great car track combo to really kick off the season with a challenge.
Sun going behind a few clouds here in qualifying, so cooling down the track, although it is pretty cool conditions today. It's about 80 degrees on the track surface. The real talking point is one of the first times we've ever had this that I can think of here on GSRC is they've sped up the time. You can do that in the iRacing simulation. So they have 2 times regular time, and they'll be starting at 3 p.m. virtual standard time. So even though it'll be 40 minutes regularly in real time in the race, it'll effectively be about 80 minutes within the sim that the clouds will travel and the sun will travel over these drivers. There you see Fred Desai for France, currently sitting in the 7th spot. Another one of the faster drivers, but I don't think we've seen him win a race here in the Weekend Warriors. Maybe without the likes of Iro Nalm and Houdaloutis here today, we'll get him a chance to be up at the top step of the podium. Taking a look around to see who else to look out for. Jerry McAreevy a little bit farther down than we're used to seeing him, but how many laps has he got in? Oh my goodness, he's only gotten 1 timed lap in, and he's had a lot of off tracks here, Nick. So he's got to really work to get some clean ones in. He's only got 5 minutes left.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like he's sitting at about 8 incident points right now, and those don't start counting for your points until the race, but just goes to show you he's sitting 17th right now. That is a lot further down than we are used to seeing him. Now he just got bumped to 18th there with someone now he's 19th. So
it's going down.
He's I know I should stop giving him the commentator's curse here, but yeah, everyone trying to get every little last inch of racing surface out of these cars. Of course, slower cars, bigger track, and you'd think that'd be a really easy combination, but a lot of times you're really trying to push those limits.
Well, and that brings up a good point. Slower car and bigger track means one thing typically here, especially when they're underpowered like this car, is the draft factor. So, I mean, are there places that you'll see it majorly in effect around here?
Oh, for sure. I think down the hangar straight, of course, and even the front stretch a little bit, I think those are going to be the two biggest parts of this track. The hangar straight, as you go down into Stowe, it's going to be a right-hander, of course, that these drivers are all too familiar with at this point, I'm sure. It's going to be one of those right-handers, I think, with the draft. It's going to be really hard. These cars are really weight shifty, really easy to lose control, especially when you have a little extra speed from a straightaway going into a turn like that.
And I think, unfortunately, McAreevy discovered that because he just had a spin and is elected to take a tow back to the pits. Now, I don't see him exiting again. He's actually going to have to hurry because he'll only get time for potentially one lap, even, I think, if he takes off now. So that's not good. Now he's starting to get going. This is Miroslav Juracek that we were watching for a moment there. Miroslav currently sitting in the 18th position, actually just ahead of Jerry. So he'll be the one bumped down if McAreevy can manage to improve in his time. Good to see him get back out on track, but he certainly has put himself under the gun.
Yeah, looks like just about everyone's still out on the track. David Gaspers, our pole sitter right now, coming into the pits. He's the only one that's broken into the 208s, and Steven Nelson and Daniel Sadro right behind him right now, second and third.
Yeah, Sadro just jumping up to that third place recently there with his fastest at a 209.4. That's a good point about Gaspers hitting that 208.8, 6/10 between himself and Elson. Now, Elson is about halfway through the lap, so I think he should get this one and one more, at least if he doesn't mess up. And let's see, Sadro just being up to third. Jason Perry is still out there. Looks like he's going to have another go. Fred Desai is coming back out on track with just enough time to get one more lap in. Nope, he's going to call it a day.
Yeah, Fred Desai in the 76, sitting in 5th place right now. Really close in terms of his time, or in terms of his lap time there, behind Jason Perry, who just got bumped to 4th with Daniel Sadro, sorry, moving up into that 3rd place position. But yeah, looks like Steven Elson right now, as you see there, the UK and Ireland driver, making his lap, trying to improve on that. But it's even if he does improve, he's got to improve pretty significantly to knock David Gaspers off of that top spot.
All right, we're going to find out soon if he can get it on this lap, and he'll have one more go after that. Out and through Woodcote he goes. Across the line, which comes early on this straightaway. Let's see if this lap is any better than that 209. It is. It's a 209 flat exactly, enough to improve, but not his position. He'll still be on the front row, but at least he can feel more confident that he can be within reach of the German. Oh, and then just as we say that, Daniel Manenkov, using a little bit of draft from Kane Halliburton, moves himself up to first. Kane goes to second.
Yeah, Daniel Manenkov at the tail end of a line right there with draft. He's mentioned Kane Halliburton in front of him, and then he had a couple more drivers ahead of him. So he was really going hard down the hangar straight away. That really helped him, as Kane Halliburton just moved up to 2nd place with Antonio Reese going to 3rd.
Yeah, Antonio was the one that just crossed the line. Kane was leading Daniel across it when those two just took the front row. So the number 77 doing a nice job getting himself in the mix. I think it is going to be a very tight fight now that we've lost the likes of the Roland Estonian and Greased Lightning up at the front. Only 30-some seconds left on the clock now, so drivers are running out of chances to get times in. I believe Keith Walsh and Stevie Ray are going to be able to cross in time to get one more after this lap that they're completing right now.
Yeah, that draft really having such an effect on these cars, especially in qualifying. If you can get hooked on the tail of on the back of someone in kind of a train, it'll really help you here.
I think our highest driver about to finish after the clock ticks down to 0 will be Steve Elson. We're riding on board with Sadro in 6th right now. Elson's just coming around Brooklands, and all he's got is Luffield and Woodcote to go. So the UK&I driver, the number 56 car, Currently sits on the 3rd row on the inside. I'm sure he'd want a lot more than that considering he was on the front row not long ago. As he crosses the line, he's got a 209 flat. He's got to do quite a bit better with 0.6 up to the pole, but that one is not going to improve for him.
So unless we see someone late here with an amazing run, I think this is going to go to Daniel Manenkov for the pole with Kane Halliburton. We're seeing Antonio Reese right now sitting in 3rd in that 77 car.
Jason Perry bumps himself up to 6th. Jerry McAreevy is going to give up and go for 20th on the grid. This is becoming normal for him. Antonio Reese is not going to take a lap. Sadro is not going to take a lap. Richard Yolland, who tends to be fast in this car, is abandoning it at the very last corner. Doesn't think he's fast enough. David Gaspers as well gives up the ghost, and a stunning number of drivers that don't think they can go any faster. I think Juracek is going to be the last one to cross the line with a time. I think he got across just soon enough earlier. Currently sits down in 19th. Let's see what the Central Eastern Europe drivers got underneath him.
Right now sitting in 19th on the inside of row 10 with Jerry McAreevy to his outside. That's almost an assured spot to lose there on the start. I'm sure McAreevy's going to be wanting to make up as many spots as he can right from the get-go.
As he comes around Woodcote, trying to cut it as short as possible. And across the line at 2:10.6. Does it improve? It doesn't. Oh, it does improve up 1 position to 18th now at 2:10.4. So 2:10s knocked off at the last gasp. That's going to solidify our grid. So we'll go through our starting order now. Daniel Manenkov, as we mentioned, returns with a splash, puts himself on pole. Kane Halliburton, who we saw last season, we know is fast. He's 3/10 behind. He'll be on the front row with him. Antonio Reese will be 3rd place at the drop of the green, with David Gaspers starting 4th. Steve Elson is P5, and the outside of row 3 is completed by Jason Perry in 6th. Daniel Sadro starts 7th, followed by Fred Desai in 8th. Richard Yolland will start P9, and the top 10 are rounded out by Jens Nordstrom.
Row 6 is going to be comprised of Henrik Lindhoff in the 8 and Andres Bertoni in the 21. Alejandro Leiro behind them with Francisco Bernardo to his outside. Stevie Ray will round out the top 15 alongside C. Love in the 264 car starting in 16th. And they are going to be followed by Edward Doherty, Miroslav Juracek, Chris Murakami, and Jerry McAreevy going to be starting P20.
Luis Vanders Luis starts 21st, followed by Bob Kern in the 22nd spot. Adam Bradshaw will be 23rd. Tom Gradwell starts in P24. Then in 25th, it's Gary Wolbolt. Esanumi starts 26th. He'll be followed by Keith Walsh from 27th. Paulo Prado starts P28 with Jeff Cantor behind them, starting 29th. He'll be flanked by Mark Gehan in 30th. Jeff Jacobson starts 31st. Last 2 cars to not get a time in. Wayne Palmer is on the grid. He'll be 32nd. And Ross Nicholson looks like he will start as well. He'll be 33rd. Till and Charlie. Our pole sitter in terms of Spec 2 is Alejandro Liero. Now, I know that you'll see a 3-digit number on Daniel Manenkov. I feel pretty confident that that is an error, that Daniel is not considered a Spec 2 driver. That is the way that you tell them apart. 2-digit numbers for Spec 1, 3-digit numbers for Spec 2 drivers. So, as they line up on the grid, it is going to be a rolling start here as they get behind the roof pace car. We've got a full pace lap to get an idea of how we feel about each of these drivers. And Nick, I am looking forward to this because this is sort of an interesting track to me. I feel like it's got the draft as part of it, but then it's got a couple technical sections that I wonder if that's going to separate people quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to see the Brooklands Luffield section towards the end of this pace lap right before they go green. That's really going to be one of the interesting parts of probably the most interesting part of the track to me going into this race, to see how these cars really can handle around there. We talked about how their weight will shift so quickly, and that's not a great set of turns there to have to deal with weight shifting so quickly.
Certainly is. The cars now take off behind the roof pace car, heading down to Copse. I'm kind of curious how this will play out on the first lap, because this is such a fast right-hander, and you know, it has that paved runoff, but we've seen in the past this car doesn't do well bounding over bumps, and they've got that strip of grass after the paved runoff. Anybody who goes too wide, I fear, could accidentally spin out if they go over that.
Yeah, especially if they can't get it gathered up safely enough, and then they've got to get it gathered up before Maggots and Beckett's as we see them head towards that now, which is going to be really interesting in this car. Really fast portion for this car anyway, or for this track especially, but that quick left and right hander going to be really interesting to see how the car can stay balanced through there.
Yes, and here is that critical corner onto the long hanger straight out of Chapel from the Maggots-Beckett sequence. And this should give you an idea of just how long it is having to do a pace lap down here as the drivers. This view that we're seeing is only from the bridge that goes over it, the pedestrian bridge that they have. And there you see the full length of the straight now that they'll have to be running down. These cars looking rather diminutive on it, considering they're much smaller than what you typically see at this track. The Grand Prix cars, the LMP1s, all the various GT cars that tend to race here. And then they come up towards Stowe. Now, you talked about how flat this track is. This is one of the places where they were able to artificially add some elevation change in here, this little rise. And I don't know about you, I found it frustrating in this car.
Yeah, just a little rise there. You have a little bit of a downhill headed through Vale, and that's going to be really interesting here. Vale, I'm thinking that's going to be one of the best passing zones if they can keep it gathered up right through there for this car today.
Certainly could be. I've seen a lot of over-under fights where drivers use a better run off of Stowe, even if they were slow in there, to take it into Vale. So I would love to watch that one as well. If you're going to buy a ticket, that would certainly be a good place to sit. Then down from Club into Abbey, the last of the chicanes on this, what used to be the modern GP course, but obviously since has changed. iRacing is working on the new version. If you're not familiar with iRacing, they take care to make sure that everything is as accurate as possible to real life. And they've got a long list of tracks to do, and Silverstone, obviously, since it's been in this new version in a while, it unfortunately has had to take a backseat to a few major tracks, which I think could be understandable. Places like Nürburgring and Le Mans obviously took a little bit of precedence that they wanted to try and get onto the iRacing service. So as we work through Brooklands, Nick was talking about this being a very slow technical portion where it'll test the driver's skill on working their way and dealing with the weight shift of this car. Daniel Manenkov will have control as the pace car peels in. Everybody gets checked up behind him, waiting for the green flag to wave. He is also waiting patiently. Green flag is out. Daniel Manenkov accelerates, but not very fast. Already we're getting cars looking almost 4 wide down the front stretch. This could be bad news into Copse. I'm seeing Jason Perry up around the outside, starting to back out of it, thinking better of this situation. A few 3 wide through that first corner, but it's looking very clean for the most part.
Yeah, a really hectic start there. I'm surprised they got through there so cleanly. Now, if they can hold that through Maggots and Beckett's, is going to be the real challenge, as all that weight shifts left and right. Looks like we have a couple cars off and spinning, but other than that, still clean up front.
Richard Yolland looks like he is one of them that was first involved in that. Edward Doherty getting back onto the track. He completely spun off, and I thought I saw one more, but otherwise, only 3 cars involved is not too shabby. They now head down the hanger straight. You can see the draft pulling Halliburton up to the back of Manenkov. He did not lose his second place. Antonio Reese still in, David Gasper still in third as well. Those 3 coming out in the same order that they went into that corner. Meanwhile, we got more accidents happening through Stowe at the middle of the field. I think Jens Nordstrom involved in that one. Now as they come off of Club towards Abbey, Manenkov in front of Halliburton, in front of Gaspers, in front of Reese, in front of Elson with a slight breakaway back to Perry in 6th.
And Jason Perry did not have a very clean lap so far. I don't think he made much contact with anyone, but he was really sliding around. A lot of bad luck was handed to Jason Perry on this lap so far. I'm sure he's loving having the single file racing now, trying to get it gathered back up.
Yep, looks like most of the drivers have sorted themselves out, and the only driver I see not continuing on right now is C. Love. Everybody else did get their car going after some of the melee that we saw there after the drop of the green. We've got a little bit of a chance, so we were going to look at a replay, but we've got a battle for the lead as Halliburton got a good run off of Luffield and to Moats Manenkov.
Yeah, Manenkov did not take much of a defensive line there at all. Don't know if he thought he had to, but Manenkov going to get right up to the rear of Halliburton here and try to get a good run going down through Maggots and Beckett's.
Looks like he's not going to get it here. I'm not sure if we want to take the replay quite yet because I have a feeling he'll try to come back at him out onto the hangar straight. Let's wait and see through Maggots and Beckett's before we decide to duck away, but I do want to get a glance at what happened in that opening little incident that happened into this very section. Manenkov a little bit far back, so not sure that we're going to see a pass down into Stowe. Why don't we take a glance back at that first big problem here in the race. So we got to back up a little bit farther. That's Yallen that we saw. Oh, just a little bit of a bump. And the number 96 finds himself getting spun around. We're going to watch it from above so we can get a better idea of exactly what went down.
Looks like just a little bit of a bump there and a little bit of a chain reaction going through there as they come back across the track in front of oncoming traffic.
Yep, that was Doherty that you see him returning there. He was a little bit of an innocent victim. The cars in front of him, like you said, spinning when he didn't expect it. So as we looks like we're going to try and watch Nordstrom, Jens Nordstrom, to see if we can figure out what happened to him, because I'm not even sure what the Scandinavian had go down here. It just was way off the corner here in Stowe. Oh, the number 69 got a little loose. Ran into him.
Yeah, just got up on that curbing just a little bit, and that really unsettled the car there. Had a bad entry into the corner anyway, and then that curbing made it all the more worse here. Henrik Lindhoff was just a victim of that, but the battle for the lead now back live, very interesting because Manenkov looking like he wanted to try to take a peek there, but he also had to pay attention to David Gaspers behind him.
Yeah, went defensive on Gaspers, but also could have been attacking on Manenkov. Whatever the case, they stay where they are. Went attack on Halliburton. Halliburton still leads. Manenkov second. Gaspers third. They've got Reese giving a watchful eye behind, but he is not as involved as those three are in the fight. Meanwhile, understand Bertoni is off track. Looks like coming into Maggots Beckett's, he is turned around, and that was all his own making.
Yeah, it looks like he avoided some damage during that, but then take a look here. Running 17th, yeah, just got a little loose there and was able to catch it. Had a lot of runoff there to deal with or to work with.
Oh, battle for the lead, back on again to the inside of Vail. Manenkov's got the line, but can he get off there? He outbrakes himself into the corner. Halliburton's going to try to go the long way around in club. He's got the speed to do it. Manenkov loses second place now as David Gaspers also blows by him. It was a valiant effort, but it was not to be.
And they're side by side behind them as well. Antonio Reese and Steven Elson battling for that P4 position.
Another big lockup from Manenkov down into the Abbey chicane. Elson's going to come out on top between himself and the number 77 of Reese, so move him up to P4. Boy, things are kicking off here. And, whoa, another move down to the inside. Reese takes it back with a fierce outbraking maneuver into Priory.
Gaspers is looking really aggressive right now. It's making Halliburton go the defensive route unless he doesn't want to give up that lead, because right now, any moment, Gaspers could lead him and Manenkov possibly with a draft around Halliburton for the lead right now.
And look at what all of this battling has done. It is an absolute freight train all the way down to 8th place Fred Desai before you get a break in the cars. Change for first place as Halliburton's overtaken by Gaspers into Kops. Manenkoff tried to take a look but couldn't quite pull it off.
Yeah, Manenkoff wanted to follow Gaspers right through there. Not quite enough room because Halliburton shut the door as they go through Maggots, and Beckett's now onto the hangar straightaway. Let's see what kind of line Halliburton takes here if he wants, just how aggressive he's going to be to take back that lead from Gaspers.
And in all of this, we haven't even brought up one thing that has been a big factor in these races prior, Nick, and that is fuel saving. These guys in the back have not been fighting nearly as much, just like this, because Kane Halliburton and Daniel Manenkoff are going to try to go 3 wide with our leader, David Gaspers, into Stowe. Gaspers carries the most speed. Halliburton hanging around the outside of Daniel Manenkoff, and the order is going to be Gaspers, Halliburton, Manenkoff, although Manenkoff about to be demoted by Reese, who looks to the inside, down into Vail.
Antonio Reese, who's been battling a lot with Steven Ellison in this race, almost got the position, and Reese and Ellison are actually going to make contact. Ellison comes back across the track, and that's Jason Perry that he takes out with him.
Spider-Man's not going to be happy about that one. We're going to watch the replay once again. Just got shoved a little bit inside over the curb, and it looked like a bad bounce maybe. Yeah.
The cars of the freight train were getting closer and closer every lap, and it was a matter of time before, unless they got it sorted out, that something like that was going to happen with a chain reaction.
Come on board, Jason. I almost feel like if I was Jason, I maybe would have gone a little bit wide or lifted or something there as soon as I saw that car get pushed to the inside like that. But, you know, easy to say from up here. It's always very different inside the cockpit. Hard to make those split-second decisions. We haven't covered the Spec 2 championship yet this race. Well, Adam Bradshaw leads that right now, and he is up to the dizzying heights of 10th place, just behind Jason Perry, who recently had his incident.
And right now it's Bob Kern that sits in 2nd place of that group, I believe. Oh, no, he's...
Liero,
it's like Alejandro Liero. Yep.
Yeah.
Bob Kern had a bad lap that time. He might have run into some trouble, lost a lot of spots. He was 2nd going into that lap, though.
Well, he's got some big damage on the car, so Liero's hit something at some point, and that's certainly not going to help him in a straight line. This car being so woefully underpowered, he takes a look on Luis Vanders Luis, and it doesn't work out. Bad news for Steve Ellison fans. He's actually had to take to the pits because of his damage.
3 wide for the lead right now. It is Manenkoff stuck in the middle. Halliburton went down low, and Gaspers is going to fall all the way back to 3rd.
Reese is where he was before, but he's not going to put his car side by side this time around. He stays behind David Gaspers, and they will be single file through club. Halliburton, Manenkoff, Gaspers, Reese, Desai, and Sadro are your top 6 in a big breakaway, almost 4 seconds ahead of Stevie Ray.
Halliburton really pulling away that straightaway there. We haven't seen that too much, but Gaspers really got a good run on Manenkoff there to create that.
Riding on board with our leader, looking back at Manenkoff. Now hit the technical final portion of the circuit, weaving through Priory into Brooklands. Ooh, Manenkoff late on the brakes. This is what, the 4th time that we've seen Daniel really lock him up and put smoke out on the tires. Now, we don't have flat spots in iRacing, but I worry about how hot he's making them.
Yeah, exactly. And with all these long straightaways, all of these long straightaways that go into those broad turns, as we see now, a little bit of pass for the lead. I believe he's going to get it.
It's awful close behind. Does Kane Halliburton actually gives him a little bit of a bump. You can do that in these cars. You just can't thunk them too hard. But up to the front, David Gaspers uses his momentum to sneak through by the time they hit the Maggots-Beckett sequence.
David Gasper's using all of the curbing there, right through there, and Maggots and Beckett's had almost really unsettled the car, but he was able to keep it and keep the lead through there. Manenkov, see if he can get a run here on the hanger straight.
Again.
He does have Halliburton behind him, who's going to pull up alongside of him now.
3 wide for the 3rd time already this race for the lead. Halliburton with the most speed, but he breaks a little bit earlier than Manenkov. Manenkov up around the outside with that off-camber corner, can't quite hold it out. He stays to the left side, coming down to Weir. He's eyeing it. Has he learned his lesson? Can he keep from outbraking himself? He smokes the tires once again, but this time he stays side by side with Halliburton. Behind them, plugging up the track, David Gaspers trying to hedge his bets on Halliburton having more speed, and it works out. He takes 2nd place away.
And even though he's had a couple of opportunities, Antonio Reese continues to eat his popcorn back there in 4th position right now. Not being aggressive at all. I think that's part and due to saving fuel, like you said there earlier, Joe. It's a pretty thirsty track for these Spec Racer Fords with all these long straightaways, and I think all this battling is really going to help Antonio Reese in the long run.
Oof, they're still side by side. Gaspers had it go, a big slide from Halliburton. He catches it, but that gives Gaspers the lead.
A big slide from Halliburton indeed, and now he does not have the preferred line as Manenkov actually is going to make contact with him.
Ooh, they got to be careful. All this fighting is not going to end well. A little bit of a bump from behind. I think Halliburton did not appreciate that shove and expresses his displeasure getting into him. Now, I've seen a little bit of blinking from Gaspers this last lap. I'm hoping that's not going to become a regular thing because we've got cars fighting so hard. There's another one.
Yeah.
That will certainly not end well.
And it looks like we are our first maybe scheduled pit stop. Stevie Ray, who was at 8th place in the 11 car, has come into the pit. So right now with 26 minutes, he is in the pits for fuel.
Sadro with a spin. Sorry to cut you off, but he was at the tail of the train and all by himself. I think we'll get to it in a moment because we got a battle happening up at the front once again, except it's for 2nd place this time. Halliburton and Manenkov. Wow, what a head of steam on Halliburton, though. He goes for 2nd and then 1st. Eyes that top spot. Can't quite carry the speed enough. They're going to stay side by side down into Weir. Another blink from Gaspers just to complicate things, and they run into each other. Gasper gets turns around. Halliburton keeps his car pointed forward, but he loses 2 spots as Antonio Reese is now into 2nd.
Going to take a look back at that incident with Sadro, I believe now. He was following Fred Desai, who was 5th. They were 5th and 6th. And Sadro, as you see there, turned around just a little bit. We'll go a little further back here. Sadro just a little bit, maybe outbraked himself a little bit, and or did he hit the curbing?
He got it a little bit, but I think you're more right. I think he outbraked himself. Now let's take a look at the incident with Gaspers. You got to wonder, with the blinking, maybe Halliburton saw something completely different on his screen.
It's definitely very possible, or may have seen him just a little bit, a couple inches to the left or right, which could have definitely changed Halliburton's racing line quite a bit. You see Halliburton there to his right, and just a little bit of contact. I don't know if Halliburton knew he was there all the way over.
And Halliburton was drifting off to the right here. Let's see. But it looks like Gaspers was drifting over quicker and just didn't know it. Meanwhile, as we come back live, lead still being fought for as it's Manenkov and Halliburton side by side into the Maggots-Beckett sequence. You really don't want to do that. They do sort it out. Oh, but there's only so many times you can get away with that.
So what was a 6 or 7 car train has really become a train of 4 right now. Halliburton leading, Manenkov 2nd, and Reese and Desai still staying in tow, saving a little bit of fuel while all this is battling out.
Antonio Reese taking a little bit of a look. Manenkov, though, the one that stays in it. Ooh, as he sends it in deep another time through Stowe. This is becoming a regular thing through this corner in the battle for the lead. He's got a much better run off of it, and if he could just keep from outbraking himself into this corner, I think he's got first away. The Spec 2 championship, as hot as this is heating up, but look at this. Manenkov getting shoved out of the way again. Halliburton now squeezing his car in there through Club. He doesn't carry the speed off of it down to Abbey, as Manenkov's going to have the inside to this chicane. Question is, can he gut it off the corner enough? He gets a big slide and a shove from behind. Antonio Reese, and he loses the car. Daniel Manenkov into the wall. Let's take a look at this one more time. And this one definitely started by Daniel. Too much curb on the first apex. That one easy to diagnose. And then it all fell apart. He gets it going, but Halliburton fifth. Yeah, absolutely. Now we're going to get the replay, I believe, of the battle for Spec 2. Oh, well, this was our leader for Spec 2, I believe. Bradshaw was our leader there, was he not? So he is now lost out. Does that mean Liero is now our leader? I'll check it in a second here. I'm trying to watch the replay to see.
Does look like Alejandro Liero has moved into the S2 lead.
Oh, these curbs are killers. That's another car spun around just because he got a little greedy. Fortunately, as we come back live, Manenkov has had to come into the pits. And I'm not sure if he knew he had his spare car because he's been sitting in there a while. I would have thought that he would have just, unless he's taken a tow, that could be the case. Well, looks like he did drive it in. So, with all that messing around, there are only 3 monkeys jumping on the bed. But Antonio Reese has pulled himself a handy gap over Gaspers and Halliburton. I'm starting to think those two will need to work together if they want to chase the number 77 down.
Yeah, David Gaspers was one of those monkeys that fell off the bed. He's jumped back on it because he's back up to second with all of this scuffling in front of them. Got to hop past Halliburton there into second as Fred Desai lost out big time on that. He was right with these leaders. Fell back to fourth with that incident.
See if he can gather it back up and catch them, because I have a feeling this fighting is not over, with 3 of them still in the mix, showing very little in the way of willing to give up. They're catching up to the back of Reese very quickly here.
Antonio Reese, we weren't seeing him be super aggressive on the 3 leaders when they were all battling 2 and 3 wide ahead of him. So right now, probably with the same mindset, trying to be real conservative and clean. We talked about how killer these curbs are and how easy it is to lose the footing here with your car. And Antonio Reese right now leading, but well, how long will that last for?
I think we'll find out pretty soon. Because if they back off, we'll have an inkling of how these 3 want to race together. But if they go for it, well, I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of that all the way to the end. Here's Jason Perry coming in, the number 97, taking a stop. I'm expecting probably to take a spare car because there's some pretty harsh damage on the right front. Spider-Man's got a little bit of a black eye.
Jason Perry, one of those drivers involved in the wreck before. You see a lot of right front, right side damage there. And yeah, he takes that fast repair. Gets the new car, and he should be out of the pits after, I'm guessing he's taking fuel as well.
Absolutely. As we watch our leaders, I think they've calmed down now. It looks like they've learned their lesson. But we do have a battle for 9th going on. That's Luis van der Sluis and Jerry McAreevy, currently not too far behind our Spec 2 leader all the way up to 8th. Jerry McAreevy on his climb forward hits another rung, and he is now going to promote himself to 9th, past Luis.
Yeah, Jerry McAreevy, we talked about him in qualifying, didn't have the run at all that he wanted. Started 20th, but like you said, up to 11th right now, or up to 9th, sorry, right now. So moving up a little more every lap.
Oh, Reese is off track in the Abbey chicane, and he had help. David Gaspers braking a little bit too late. You're going to see an almighty shunt into the back of him.
We talked about Antonio Reese following the 3 leaders. I think he might have been getting used to braking a little earlier than everyone else, just to kind of separate himself from that really hard battling in front of him. If he had that braking line right through there, that makes sense that Gaspers did not expect him to get on the brakes that soon.
Well, he's now found himself a friend to Fred Desai, and they have actually come in to pit together. This is probably a good call, since he can now get that car repaired, get his spare car out there, and not lose too much in the way of time. They're going to be joined by Chris Murakami, who we haven't talked a whole lot about, but that peppermint painted car finds its way down the pit lane. This has been one of the more physical races I've ever seen in the Weekend Warriors.
Absolutely, and not just with bump drafting, just with all of the battling that we've had going on. But right now, like you said, it has been calming down a little more and more as we go along and, well, lose people from that front train. Down to 2 up front right now, Gaspers and Halliburton. I wonder when they will decide to come in, because I can't imagine if they're wanting to save fuel that they're going to want to be out there making solo laps alone.
Well, the plot thickens. Fred Desai got back out, but guess who jumped him? Not a driver I would have expected. Stevie Ray has gotten past Desai, which means Ray, I think, effectively should be, when the cycle goes through, in 3rd place, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. Stevie Ray was the first person, I believe, to pit today, to have a scheduled pit stop for fuel. So a little bit of strategy here from that 11 car. I think that's definitely going to work out in his favor.
And while Desai came out behind him and should be able to probably try and stay with him, Antonio Reese is a long ways back. I don't think he took repairs, but he had the 3-second longer stop than Fred Desai. Antonio Reese very, very slow in his stall.
Yeah, and another thing that's going to help Stevie Ray, just going back to him for a second, is right now he's in a train of 4 cars, a couple of S2 drivers in there that are going to help him on the straightaways. I think Keith Walsh and Jeff Cantor run in front of him, one behind him, and then Fred Desai also in that line of 4 cars as well.
I'm watching the leaders to see if we got anybody else coming in from the top spots. It looks like Andre Bertoni currently sits in 4th. He's going to elect to come in at this point. That will promote Liero all the way up to 4th. Now, it is a bit of a false 4th. As we said, he has yet to pit, so things still need to cycle through. But man, he's got to feel pretty proud knowing that he's got that 282 on him, and he is within the top 5.
Absolutely. What a way to start the season for Alejandro Liero. Didn't even have the S2 lead to start this race, but just the law of attrition, a couple of drivers being knocked out of the top spots, and Liero picking up some damage himself as well. As we looks like Halliburton trying to make a move on Gaspers, and he's going to do that for the lead.
Well, there's only 2 of them now, so it's a lot easier to play leapfrog, and that can potentially speed them up. Halliburton up to the top spot. Gaspers now to 2nd. Sadro is currently in 3rd, but all 3 of these drivers have yet to pit. Highest pitter is still Stevie Ray. He's now been promoted to 9th. Ooh, and Reese just towed. Did something else happen? I don't have my replay up on this. Let's find out with our audience. He's got a car exiting the pits in front of him. That can sometimes cause complications. Was side by side on his way in there, and indeed he gets a little bump, gets spun around, and I guess after all the woes that he's had so far, he decided enough was enough. Oh, and Stevie Ray, where did Steve go? He's no longer leader. He's spun off in stow.
He has indeed, and he just got passed left and right by the cars going by him. So he got it gathered up before they came to him, but it looks like when he was racing with those couple of S2 drivers, and I believe Fred Desai was in that group as well. I know Cantor was back there. Looks like he got to the front of that train and went off track just a little bit, hopped the curbing, and that really unsettled the car.
Yeah, Yeah, you can see he got it going once again, but that is a missed opportunity for Stevie Ray at a very well-earned top 10 potentially. He's now down to 16th. Looks like Liero has come in, our leader in the Spec 2 race. Let's see who's our highest pitter in Spec 2, actually. A long ways down. Bradshaw, all the way down in 19th right now. I don't think he has any worries about losing this lead.
And the two S1 drivers leading this, Halliburton and Gaspers, still waiting on them to come in the pits. Right now, showing Sadro up to third as well, how all of these are cycling through.
So we watch these two still battling up front. Sadro yet to come in as well. Jerry McAreevy, we're waiting for him to pit. Luis Vanders Luis and Keith Walsh are the last 5 to take a scheduled stop. Jeff Cantor just recently came in, making everyone from 7th on down, having taken care of that. And with these cars able to usually go about 30 minutes on fuel, I think this lap or the next one should be it for our leaders.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. They're going to be able to put in a shorter pit stop as well, because they're not going to be needing much fuel, only 10 to 11 minutes at that point. So, a little bit of contact there as Gaspers got underneath Halliburton.
These guys are not done with this hockey match at all. My goodness. They got to be careful, or they could hand it over to Fred Desai at this point. He's our highest pitter for now. And it looks like Halliburton's going to come in, and he'll be followed by Gaspers. All right, we're going to get a good feeling of where everybody sits now. DeSadro follows them in. Desai's just coming under bridge and into Priory right now.
He is pretty far back still.
Halliburton pulls into his pit stall, as does Gaspers. They're both stationary now. Sadro hits his stall. McAreevy just coming into his now. Halliburton is away. He's picking up speed as Desai's just coming onto the front stretch. They are well safe from Fred.
And the way Gaspers entered the pits, he was actually a little bit aside on the left side of Halliburton. That ended up hurting him because Gaspers had to check up to get in his pit box to avoid more contact with Halliburton in pit lane. That is why Halliburton is really far out ahead of him now, 2 seconds.
All right, we've now got our order for the top 10 sorted out. Halliburton is back to the lead. As you mentioned, 2 seconds over Gaspers. Daniel Sadro comes out, but he's almost 5 seconds back from Gaspers. He sits on the podium, though, and well-earned, as he's managed to mostly stay out of trouble. Fred Desai, another 5 seconds behind him, back and forth. It's really spread apart up at the front after those pit stops. Top 5 are rounded out by Andre Bertoni, one of the more anonymous runs here at the front.
And how about Jerry McAreevy up to 4th from 20th with all of this? We were wondering if he was going to be able to get his way up to the... I'm sorry, he's in 11th.
Yeah, he cycled back out at 11th.
Yeah, looking at the wrong lap there.
He is ahead of Liero, who is holding on to 12th in that Spec 2 championship. Now, even though they are racing in different classes, they are scored overall position. So Liero does have incentive to try and pass McAreevy, even though they are Spec 1 and Spec 2 respectively, if you will. Meanwhile, Steve Elson just overtook Bertoni for that P5. Nice comeback from Elson. Remember, he also ran into problems. Take a look at the replay here. This just outbrake him into Abbey. He's a long way back right now. Was there an error? Oh, there is a big error. Way off track. Cut course for the number 21. And he falls backwards. Let's give a little bit of a shout out to the car behind them too, in the number 97, Jason Perry. Remember, he had a bit of an off and a bit of contact, and well, he's still in 7th place, so that is not bad for him.
Yeah, Jason Perry, the one involved in that accident with Steven Nelson, so they both have pretty good recoveries up here, both inside the top 7.
Looks like he's got his own little fight going on with Bernardo there as they work their way through the Maggots and Beckett sequence. Only 8 minutes left to go on the clock. Time is running out. If you want to do something, you got to do it soon. And incredibly, we still have 27 drivers on the lead lap out of here. That's out of 33 starters in this race. Oh, the 057 finds himself turned around. This was coming up towards Chapel. Is this another case of... Nope,
yeah,
not the curb.
Looks like that was all by himself, because Miroslav Juracek was pretty far behind him and almost got to the back of him before he went all the way around, but looks like it was just Van der Sluis there by himself.
Yeah, that weight shift you keep talking about, the car back and forth through there, and well, like a pendulum, eventually it swung completely around. So down to 16th he goes from that mishap. Oh, we talked about Liero and McAreevy fighting for position. Well, bring Murakami into the mix. This is all for a top 10 finishing position.
Chris Murakami just trying to get the tail end of this draft right here. He does have Mark Guillen behind him, who is multiple or just one lap down, but might end up helping him in the long run if they can be hooked up a little bit further and trying to catch the guys in front of him.
Up at the top of your screen, you may have seen a flash of purple. That is Kane Halliburton putting in the fastest lap of the race. Extends his gap over Gaspers to 2.8 seconds. He is making sure to nail the lid shut and keeping Gaspers from overtaking him.
Absolutely, and Halliburton may also have had that little bit of a separation we saw after the pit stops. May have had taken less fuel than Gaspers, which would help his speed tremendously as well.
Certainly would make him that much more safer. These two really running away with things. Sadro's got no chance of catching them at this point unless they have a mistake that brings them back into things. Oh, and Fred Desai just got overtaken. Steve Elson just got by for 4th. This was up into Stowe. They've also got Bertoni with them.
Yeah, quite the battle there for 4th. Bertoni has really joined that party because Desai and Elson, last we checked on them, were all by themselves. Bertoni has really closed that gap.
Oh, Steve Ray. I think he is not a fan of Stowe Corner. This one starts even before he gets off track on the exit. Look at him slide and try to catch it and try to catch it. Eventually, it gets away from him.
Yeah, lots of effort there from Stevie Ray to try to catch that SRF underneath him, but just a little bit hopping here and there and just gets away from him. So that demotes him down to 14th, sadly. Oh, we had some contact between the leaders. Or, excuse me, not the leaders. This was Desai and Elson. He got into the back of him, and that allows Andre Bertoni to get through. Down into Brooklands. You're going to see it here. Through Priory they go. Ooh, maybe not. They maybe did not touch. Regardless, it certainly threw Desai off. Yeah, it did. Bertoni is going to be able to take that spot away from him, move himself up into the top 5 for him, the 21 car. And Bertoni's still going to try to chase down Steven Nelson here, but Desai, he did lose some time and some ground there, but not enough to separate him from Bertoni and Elson. So that's good news for him. Still definitely in this for a battle for a potential P4 or P5. As far as the top of the field goes, I'd say Bertoni is our biggest mover right now. He was 12th on the grid. He's sitting in 5th. Potentially could even be as high as 4th, depending on what he could do
with Elson. So the Hispano-American driver, to me, gets the tip of the hat for a hard charger. Oh, Juracek with some issues. Maggots Beckett claims another victim. He was coming up fast on the back of Geehan, maybe a little bit too fast for his own comfort.
Yeah, coming up really fast there, and didn't, just that little tap of the brakes there kind of unsettled the car, and then all that weight shifting that we keep referencing just all did not go well there for Juracek.
3 minutes left to go.
Oh, a couple cars off track here.
Steve
Looks like
Ray again.
Yeah, Stevie Ray and Mark Guillen. That might be two separate accidents, actually.
Yeah, Geehan started to spin, and then Steve actually managed to avoid him. You're going to see here, he goes the long way around. And for the third time this race, Steve's facing the wrong way in Stowe Corner.
And Stevie Ray was just about on his lid there, because when he caught that little sanded area with the grass there off of the asphalt runoff, that car did not like that. Got almost on its side.
Yep, and we saw just a little bit ago another fastest lap for Kane Halliburton. I should mention, Steve is the organizer of this league. I kind of wonder if we're going to be doing the North Loop next year instead of the full GP course. 2 minutes left to go. And Halliburton, I think, is going to be getting the white flag next time by. Yes, he should be. Ooh, Liero managed to get up to 9th. He did get past McAreevy when we weren't looking. The 282 has had a phenomenal race out here. I suspect Alejandro is going to be one to watch for the Spec 2 Championship.
Absolutely. No one's gotten really anywhere close to him since the start of this race. Adam Bradshaw is our next S2 driver. He is back in 13th right now. Quite a ways back. And then even behind him, looks like it's Bob Kern and Edward Doherty, 3rd and 4th in the S2 right now.
Yeah, and Bradshaw did give Liero a run for his money. You remember, he led him at the start, but a major error from the 205 is what put him this far behind Alejandro. So he's got to work on his consistency a bit if he wants to try and challenge for the Spec 2 Championship and get promoted up to Spec 1 like the likes of Nordstrom.
We were looking at that battle for P4 overall a couple of moments ago with Steven Elson. Steven Elson's kind of starting to check out from that group there. Bertoni and Desai, the gap between all of those three drivers gets bigger and bigger every lap, but Desai really trying to hold on to that, behind Bertoni.
White flag waves for Halliburton in the meantime. He's extended his gap to second place Gaspers by 4.3 seconds. As soon as he broke that draft, I think we've seen who the fastest driver left is. Kane Halliburton is leaving no doubt what kind of speed is underneath him coming into this season. Really, most of the fights up at the top of the field are drifting apart. The closest one we've got, interestingly, is between the Spec 2 leader, the 282 of Liero, and Jerry McAreevy in 10th overall. And the number 67 as he gets a run down the front stretch, but almost gets pushed off track.
McAreevy has moved up from 20th to 10th and now make that 9th as he's going to get around to Liero on the outside, but I don't think Liero is going to be done with him.
Yeah, he's going to want as many points as possible. And as this has been happening, we've got a pass between Doherty and Kern as well.
And that is for third place in the S2. So that's for a podium position in Spec 2.
Wow, look at that decisive braking down into Brooklands. Almost even loses the car, but he makes it stick. Great job by the New Yorker, I have to admit. There's talent down there in Spec 2. Never downplay those guys.
And Doherty was really far back as now we see this battle between Liero and McAreevy really heat up. McAreevy, I believe, is going to get back to the inside here and make that work. But again, Liero is going to be hard charging back.
Oh, he's making him work for it. Look at him go defensive down into Vale. but he's very shallow into the corner. Liero knows it. He tries to carry the speed around, but the question is, can he do it? And I'm not sure how long we'll get to watch this because we got 2 more corners to go for Halliburton. Up and around Luffield. Only Woodcote left to do here for Kane Halliburton. He opens round 1 with a win. The UK&I driver wins on home soil here in Silverstone. Gaspers follows him through. Sadro third, and then it's a battle for fourth. Ooh, and Bertoni almost loses the car. Desai tries to come up and take it from him. And don't forget Francesco Bernardo, who finds himself in the mix now.
Bernardo to the outside. He's going to make that work. I believe that's an interesting pass for Bernardo there.
Desai's out of fuel. Bertoni is out of fuel. They coast to the line. Elson as well. They short-fueled it.
Wow. Trying to get every last bit of speed there.
Wow, this is going to promote a number of drivers. Perry gets 4th. Liero is all the way up to 7th as he beats Jerry McAreevy. That's going to be a huge haul of points. And this is Adam Bradshaw. We got a replay for him. And he actually isn't able to finish the race. Did he blow an engine? What did he do here? He slides it off.
There.
And then does he just give up? Or is he out of fuel? I think he might be out of fuel.
He was running low on fuel when he slid. It's hard to get that car to throttle back up again like that.
That is horrible news for Bradshaw. What a bad way to go. But that's going to be the last of our drivers crossing the line just now. So we're going to take a break here at the Global Sim Racing channel as the sun continues to set here in England. We'll be back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. So stick around. Welcome back here to Silverstone. We just watched round one here in 2019 of the Weekend Warriors. This race, again, brought to you by Southeast Spec Racer, located in Daytona Beach, Florida. Give them a look at southeastspecracer.com. Our results, though, for this race. At the end, Kane Halliburton was up at the top in what was an elbows-out battle for the lead, and there were many casualties. David Gasper's not one of them, though. He managed to finish second. Daniel Sadro ran himself to third, with Jason Perry climbing forward up to fourth. Francesco Bernardo, well, he got a top five from 14th on the grid, partly due to the fact that he actually put enough fuel in the car. Fred Desai wound up sixth, with Alejandro Liero, our winner in the Spec 2, finishing seventh. Jerry McAreevy, who did not get a good qualifying time in, went from 20th to 8th. Andre Bertoni finishes ninth, and Chris Murakami rounds out our top 10.
Henrik Lindhoff started 11th, and that's exactly where he's going to finish, is P11. Alongside Miroslav Juracek, we saw him go from 18th to 12th today. Steven Elson, who was involved in a couple of incidents today, fell from 5th to 13th. That's where he'll wind up. Stevie Ray, who we saw facing the wrong way, I'm sure 2 or 3 too many times for him. Luis Vandersluis was going to finish 15th, and then Bob Kern, who's going to come home second place for the S2. He finishes 16th overall. Jens Nordstrom in the 69, followed by Paulo Preto in the 93. They're going to finish 17th and 18th. Tom Gradwell, I don't think that's a name we've said since doing the starting grid today, but he is going to steal a podium in the S2 with a nice run, a nice quiet run from 24th to 19th, followed by Wayne Palmer in P20.
Keith Walsh will come home in 21st, with Edward Doherty 22nd. Isanumi will take 23rd, followed by Jeff Cantor in 24th. Then it's Adam Bradshaw, who actually was in contention for the win in the Spec 2 championship until he made an error. He finishes one lap down, first car to do so, actually, 25th. Jeff Jacobson behind him in 26th, with C. Love finishing 27th. Then it's Ross Nicholson in 28th, Mark Gehan in 29th, and Antonio Reese in 30th. Daniel Maninkov was 31st, followed by Gary Wolbo 32nd, and Richard Yolland in 33rd. Some big names: Reese, Maninkov, Yolland down there at the bottom of the finishing order. We've got some drivers to talk to. Of course, our third place finisher, Daniel Sadro, manages to get a podium, but seemed a little bit slightly due to survival, Dan, because, boy, you guys were fighting hard up at the front.
Yeah, that was a crazy race up front. But there were anywhere between 6 or 8 of us up there, and then unfortunately a few people kind of went by the wayside. I almost went by the wayside there, but I just managed to recover and finish a completely undeserved third.
Well, I don't know about completely undeserved. You kept the car pointed forward for the most part, at least better than others around you. Now, we saw a lot of drivers actually have issues with a number of places around this track where it seemed like the handling of the car just did not agree with Silverstone. Were there any particular corners that you found yourself struggling with?
Well, this is not the easiest track for this car. Stowe Corner is so easy. I think it's called Stowe at the end of the backstretch. So easy to just outbrake yourself. And the chicane, the Abbey chicane, is so easy to just move your tire just a little too far out and just put yourself the wrong way. It is a really tough track. So quite a bit.
Well, at least next week we're going over to Laguna Seca, which is tough, but a little bit shorter and probably a little more familiar. But the big thing about that track is we expect maybe a little bit bigger turnout than what we saw here today at Silverstone. Do you have any fears about the traffic next week?
Well, my biggest fear about Laguna Seca is my ability to drive around it. It's probably my worst track. But with more drivers and so confined, you've got the corkscrew. So many corners are so tough. That's going to be a track, something to watch on the replay too.
Certainly will. Well, again, congratulations on a podium. I don't care what you say. I think you deserve this. Go enjoy some champagne, and hopefully we'll see you in a week's time.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Sadro, third place finisher here today from 7th on the grid, while Nick has caught up with our 14th place finisher, Stevie Ray.
Yes, I have Stevie Ray, who started 15th and moved up to 14th despite Stevie. We're very sorry we caught a couple of those little spins on camera. Talk about those for us and just how difficult this racetrack proved to be.
Yeah, I've definitely had better days. I made too many mistakes today and spun a couple times. I figured you guys would catch that, but that's all right. It's a fun track. It's a bit challenging, but I just wanted to come in for a minute and say thank you to all the guys, the drivers support the Weekend Warriors week after week, and especially to Southeast Spec Racer for coming on board and sponsoring the whole season this time. I think it's pretty neat when a real world team driving the same car comes in and supports the esports and the virtual drivers. I think we're the only ones doing that.
Absolutely. The Spec Racer Ford esports industry, definitely this is where to go for it. And it's a lot of fun to watch. Being higher up, of course, in the league organization, we mentioned briefly today, didn't get to watch it much because we were focused on the track, the sped up dynamic sky. It was twice the speed as normal, and that was probably the first time we think we've seen that on GSRC. Talk about that for us.
Yeah, that's kind of a neat dynamic that iRacing put in this season to be able to set the time of day for your different sessions, and you can speed up the time frame from 2 times to 8, I think, maybe more. But I thought it'd be kind of neat for us to do a morning practice and a just afternoon qualifying, and then like a 3 p.m. race. I went in to set the weather on the regular setting, the regular UI, because beta doesn't have that. And when I did, it kind of messed up the time frame, but it still came out kind of neat. I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, it came out very nice to watch the race end in the sunset. So next week we expect a big turnout at a fan favorite track at Laguna Seca. What do you expect going into that track in California?
Yeah, I think we'll have a good turnout. That's one of the more favorite tracks. And this season, with only 9 races for the league, there's only 1 drop race. So anybody that missed this one, if they want to get in the championship race, has got to kick it in next week. So I think it's going to be a fun season, and we've got some great guys and some good competition. And I think we have one of the best leagues going, and it shows. It's a lot of fun out there.
Absolutely. You're doing a heck of a job as not just a driver, but also league organizer. This is a whole lot of fun to watch this series progress through new sponsorship, and the future looking very bright for the Weekend Warriors.
Yeah, guys, thanks for what you do. Again, you guys are the best, and really looking forward to Southeast Spec Racer and Weekend Warriors also.
And we're looking forward to it as well. That was Stevie Ray, 14th place here today. We are going to close up, though. A big thank you to Steve for organizing all of this, and also a big thank you to the sponsor this season, Southeast Spec Racer. Again, if you want to check them out, it's southeastspecracer.com. They are based in Daytona, Florida. Good reason and excuse to go down to check out that track. I've been there a few times, and it is beautiful down there. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Amjed, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, on Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race is going to be, as we said, over in California, Laguna Seca. That'll be Sunday, January 13th at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.